Back in the early 1950s, actually it was 1951 when I first got stationed here at Yaquina Bay as a young seaman recruit right out of boot camp. One of the first calls we had was right here, right across the door where you see what we called the hump. That was the end of the North Jetty at that time. The jetty didn't go. The South Jetty ended right here, just barely past where we are now. And the North Jetty was there. Well, early in the morning, the fishing boat came in and took a breaker, and it washed them up into the end of the jetty, and their boat was lost. It hit the jetty and busted up in the rocks. And the two men on board crawled up the rocks. And at that time, when they built the jetty, they built it by a trestle. So there was a train that came out, and it would dump the rocks. And then they built more trestle and dump the rocks. And that was the end of the trestle, was right out about where the hump is out there. And back in the 50s, the only thing left was just part of the jetty, the old trestle. And these two fishermen, they crawled up the rocks, and they got to this trestle, and they didn't know where they were at. They knew they were hit the jetty, but they didn't know just about where they were at. And they climbed up into the trestle, and they were up there until it got light. In early morning light, the tower watch spotted these two men up on this trestle waving their arms. So we got a crew together, and I was one of the part of the crew, and we walked the rocks from the station. We went down by the bridge, and we walked the rocks out to there part of the trestle. When we got, here's these two guys still up in the trestle because they didn't know where they were going, and the waves would hit the jetty, and the spray and the water would come up, so they were soaking wet. And of course, those days we didn't know what hypothermia was. They were just damn cold, and that's what they were. They were just shivering and shaking. So we had some blankets and that with us, and we stripped them down and put the blankets around them as much as we could. And we had them, but we had to walk them back through the rocks, a half a mile or so back to the jetty, and till we got to the bridge where we got out an ambulance to pick them on up and took them to the hospital. And they both made it all right, but their boat was a total loss and gone. And there were nothing but pieces of it floating on both sides of the jetty after that. And that was one of my first calls here at Yaquina Bay.